What's up, guys? Today we are going to be looking at a video, or this is a replay from the Arlington Major, Fnatic versus Aster. And I wanted to look at this game because this is the game where Siamese Cat, I think, he just had like grave after grave after grave that was like keeping his team in the game. So we're going to kind of watch his positioning here in this game and just see what we can learn, like positioning wise, like how is he always in position to do this. Alright, so we have a little engagement coming up. It's nothing major, but I did want to just kind of highlight a little bit of what he's doing leading up to this. So his positioning here relative to like his teammates, right? It's relative to his teammates and the enemy heroes. So notice here he's, positioned. He's got his camera on the Ursa. They're trying to decide if they want to go in or not, right? Storm was sort of close by. Earth Spirit was sort of close by. And it's just the information they're gathering from the rest of the map, right? Is this a good idea? This Ursa has Aegis. They probably have a pretty good idea of when it's going to run out, so that's probably why they decided to back off. Here he like postures towards mid a little bit, but then runs back. And so basically the way their lineup works, right, is he just seems to sit behind somebody with the intent to save them. So I think that's kind of what he's doing here. He's not here to like be aggressive. He's here to like kind of make sure that he can save his Earth Spirit if needed. And maybe he can, right? So he like comes in, cast 2 spells, and then all of a sudden they like react with a bunch of heroes, and then he's like out. It's like, alright, I can't actually save a guy. Can't actually save that guy, so I'm out of here. Okay, so this isn't really an engagement, but he's sitting very far back, positioned back behind his team, right? Can't get gone on first, it's pretty much impossible. And now they've got vision, right? So they're not defending. I find it interesting that like Storm TPs to the tier 2, and he is the second one after the Storm to TP back. And this is important because he just recognizes his job is to like keep alive his core that's like going to show on this tower, right? If they do decide to like jump this Storm, like he's the one that needs to be here to like set up a grave and like have other people TP in. And if nothing happens, then it's alright that he's just chilling down here and nobody else has to TP in. Like, nobody else has to TP in until the Storm gets gone on and a grave goes off. Alright, so here a little fight is going to break out. And he doesn't actually end up graving anyone. We can still watch his positioning, right? Just because he doesn't get a grave off doesn't mean that like he's not positioned correctly. So, he gets a D-ward to start the fight. Really important if you can do that as support, by the way. Just get a D-ward down to start the fight. Make sure that they don't have the vision. So see how far back he is positioned, right? He's the furthest one on his team besides the Storm, who can like just jump in. He's the furthest one showing away from like the action, right? They cannot go on him, and his goal is to like knock it. First and foremost, to not get done on himself. And then he is not quite in range for the grave. Maybe if he had not put the second point in Poison Touch, he would have been close enough. So maybe you could call that a mistake. He also, I think, maybe had this Tumbler's toy. So, not here to blame him, we're here to learn from him, but maybe he could have even gotten that grave off if he had been a little bit closer, still a little bit differently than he's actually first toy. But you've got to kind of play it like as far away as possible while still being close enough, and that's like a fine line. So here they force out a buyback from maybe back away. You can see just being the furthest one back, but he wasn't way behind his Terrorblade, right? He was just like kind of 200, 300 units behind his Terrorblade, and quite a bit further behind his main initiating heroes. Alright, this is a Roshan fight that Aster's trying to contest. They kind of have the vision of the Ursa doing it, and he doesn't use his grave. He tries to, because the animation on the Earth Spirit doesn't quite get it off again. He dies too fast, but he does get a last second grave on the Timber, and then gets a quick Poison Touch off, and this actually does allow the Timber to get away. His grave is huge, and he actually gets away too, as they like all go to chase the Timber. Alright, maybe this Timber doesn't get away. Either way, he caused them to basically have to commit way more to get that Ursa than they otherwise would have. So nice grave from him. Let's just go back and look at his positioning one more time. So they're in the pit and in front of the pit. So he's just on the stairs. Storm again is like kind of the furthest back, right? He's going to be jumping from a distance. He's not like, right, if you're a Storm, that's kind of what you want to do. You don't want to just walk into a fight. You want to zip in and start it that way. So he's the furthest back besides the Storm. I guess it's not quite dead yet. So he's just chilling on the stairs. And just like team comp wise, he doesn't really need to worry about getting jumped. Nobody's going to be jumping this Dazzle. You know, unless Ursa is like ready to like look for somebody. Really, the only hero that's going to be jumping him is like the Ursa. So if the Ursa's doing Roshan, you know, he's not like he's well positioned to like not get gone on, right? They would have to like walk very far out of position, and they don't actually have good like catch for like a backline support. I think it's a pretty good Dazzle game on the whole. He's positioned on the stairs pretty much the whole time during that Roshan fight. Gets the Grave off, and then just walks away, luckily. And that's kind of how it works against this team comp. If they had a different team comp, maybe he would have died there, but Lesh couldn't really chase him down at that point. Some really nice positioning while they're occupying their triangle. So they've got their ward up, a defensive ward up, and notice how he like plays this. He's on the high ground, their spirit's on the low ground. He can kind of get all of his spells off from the safety of this high ground. So he doesn't have to be that worried about getting gone on again because they have no like jump the back line. As long as Ursa is like taking damage and doesn't have blink up and doesn't see him, he really isn't gonna get gone on by anybody. I think the only other thing you'd have to worry about is like this Witcher Wyvern Shadowblade cursing him with a teammate nearby. So I guess that makes his positioning a little easier, but it's still impressive. Because if he's like 200 units too close and he gets like caught by a random Fisher or something, he could easily just get blown up and die. So this next sequence, they're looking to, they see the Ursa top, so they're looking to play a little bit in the enemy jungle. And his positioning here is just, this is just exactly how you want to be positioned on these kinds of supports. He's behind the guy who would like be getting gone on first. And he's not like right next to him, but he's close enough to where he could like walk a short distance and then get a Grave off. So we'll see this play out in a second here. He's just doing some minor jungling. And note he's like kind of leaning towards his core as his Earth Spirit like kind of goes pretty far away. And he like makes the move towards his core at the perfect time, which kind of enables Storm to do this. So the Storm gets cursed, but he's here just in time to get the Grave off. And this Ori actually lives here, which is just insanely impactful. And Aster does go on to win this game, so all these Graves like really matter like a lot. Here again, just playing the back, and you know, maybe we're gonna see the same thing over and over here, but he's just never out of position. He's not walking forward when he shouldn't. He's constantly playing behind his whole team. Basically, his team is forming like a wall, right? Like he's here, or his team's here, and then he's like standing back here, right? So his team like moves up, like he's behind him, and his team moves back, like he's behind him. It was probably some terrible hand motion things, but you know, hopefully you get the gist of what I was saying there. Item-wise, he's got a shard, did go back for the max shallow grave. And he's going for Ghost Scepter, which just speaks to like what does he have to worry about, right? Getting gone on by Ursa. Another consideration could be Force Staff, because Force Staff's pretty good against Ursa. And also, it could help his teammates if he's not the one getting gone on, versus like Ghost Scepter doesn't help your teammates if you're not getting gone. So here again, he TP's in and just gets a really nice grave. Always have your TP off cooldown, guys. Okay, then they fissure into whatever. Some nice kiting in the trees and use the tumbler toy to get out though. Alright, so there's about to be another little engagement here, so we'll take a look at his positioning. So they're backing off here. They had seen Lesh show, but they weren't sure if his team was behind him or not. I think they had seen like Io or something as well up here. And here they see the Lesh again, and then they see the Ursa, so they hard commit. So he is, so because Ursa's not here, he's happy to like run in and cast his Poison Touch. He's like, I don't need to worry about Ursa going on me like right this second. So he gets his Poison Touch off, he gets his Shallow Grave off, you know, his Earth Spirit's dying over here. But he does get the Grave off on his fissured Storm Spirit. Maybe he didn't need to, but maybe he did, right? And unfortunately he doesn't have a Grave up here to save Earth Spirit, and they do get him cleaned up. They do get cleaned up. Either way, his positioning was pretty good. The Ursa did TP in and turn that around. They probably overcommitted a little bit after they got the Lesh. is a pretty simple segment here, but just to emphasize the importance to you guys is he's just sitting behind his cores so that he can never get gone on. Again, it's like the wall. And I think that's something that a lot of like maybe lower MMR, especially players, like get caught up with playing support. Is it's really just your main job is like these save supports is just not be the one that's gone on first. Oh wow, this is like super annoying. Okay. But just notice how he can never get gone on first with this positioning. Is they're just, you know, he's just sitting, you know, if they want to smoke into them, they can. You know, pros play super careful these days. It's like pretty much just like waiting for Roche and then like smoking when your carry has an item. But you know, as these safe supports, just sit behind your cores, you know? Like, they're your dazzle. You don't need to go make things happen. Alright, so let's watch what happens with this smoke. Why are they smoking? Let's just take a look. Looks like item finish for TB. Data lists, probably. Storm has BKB and Sanjakaya. Looks like he's had them both for a while. And Timbersaw has Halberd. So, smoke timing. Let's see how this goes. Notice he's in the back with Storm. Alright, Storm's going to be jumping. TV's waiting in the pit. Oh no, he's got an illusion in the pit. Notice he's still in the back, so they see them, right? So relative to the enemy team... Alright, here he's not positioned that well, honestly. But they know where they are, right? He doesn't need to be, like, way behind if he, like, knows where the enemy players are. So right now, they're occupying the triangle. It's getting 2 more smokes. They're in an awkward spot. Maybe they feel like they need to smoke out. Okay, so they note that they split up based on their vision. Alright. So his positioning here is very interesting because they saw the smoke from up here and they know the Lesh IO. We're down here, but also it's a Lesh IO, right? So they're going to probably relocate in. So really, he only needs to be worried about the heroes that he saw last right here. So given that that's what he's worried about, his positioning makes a lot of sense here. Even though you're like, oh, well, couldn't they run in from the bottom? Well, they could, except he knows that they were, like, up here. So, like, relative to where the enemies were, he's the furthest away and has a bunch of his teammates between him and where he last saw the enemy. Alright, so here it seems pretty obvious that they have changed position, right? They just smoked here like a minute ago. They're not still up here. So given that, I think his positioning here is a little suspect, but it's hard to know exactly where they should go, right? Like, they could have regrouped and smoked again. So are they coming from this way? Did they wrap and come from this way? If they did, he would have gotten caught first. He gets a little lucky here that they kind of just go on his Storm and not him, but he doesn't see the Ursa here. Okay, so the Ursa was still top. I don't know if he had like a read on that or what. His position makes a lot of sense given that's where the Ursa was. But I didn't know watching this where the Ursa was. Like, I wouldn't have thought that he was still, like, up there where we had last seen him. But, you know, that's why he's a good player and I'm not. And just again, notice the positioning. He's close to the enemy base, but relative to where the Ursa last was, the main threat against him, he is as far away as possible. So his positioning here, even though it looks weird, like, it looks like, oh, like, he's, like, really close to the enemy base or, like, the enemy buildings. He's actually very well positioned down here. If he was, like, you know, like, obviously, if he was, like, over here, that's where the Ursa last was. So his positioning just makes a lot of sense relative to where the enemy heroes are. Oh, the Ursa's, like, right in front of us. So here again, we're getting sick Brave off. Sunder's up. We got the Sunder. Hugely impactful. And just really good positioning to not be getting going on. And yeah, here they like get a full team wipe, only losing 1 hero. So really well played by him. Really cool positioning. Like, even if it looks weird, he was just as far away from the main threat against him, which is the Ursa, as possible. So in your games, identify what the main threat is to kill you and like jump you if you're this kind of hero, and stay furthest away from that hero when you see them, right? The other heroes don't quite matter as much if they're not going to be getting on top of you. I'll just note here that he did actually go for the Force Staff instead of the Ghost Scepter, so, you know, called it. And this is probably a byproduct of like what's been happening. When you're playing your games you should have an idea of what items could be good based on their lineup, like what items you might need. But then based on how the game is playing out, you can kind of choose accordingly. Like if this Ursa was always somehow getting on top of him, like for sure he probably would have gotten the Ghost Scepter, because he's like, this Ursa is always finding me and I need to not die to him. So he could have picked up the Ghost Scepter. But given how the fight's been going and how his positioning has been working effectively, he's like, all right, I'm not actually getting gone on that much, and this Force Staff to save my teammates and maybe myself is probably going to be more useful than this Ghost Scepter, given what's currently happening in the game I'm in. So you want to have like some options, and then based on what's actually happening, you know, itemize to best suit the exact situation you're in. Not just like what could in theory happen based like on paper. So here again, notice positioning. They only see the Lesh, so he's very far back. He even angled back a little bit if you saw that. Just make sure he's like behind his team, and then he walks up. He doesn't even walk all the way up. Really nice patience for him to not like overcommit here. Now the Ursa's gone, he feels free to run in. Providing some heals, and now he's got to be wary of the Ursa re-engaging possibly. Really nice cheese usage on the Earth Spirit there. And his positioning just super good here. They get a huge Echo Slam, but he gets the clutch Brave off. And notice he just never got gone on, and that's like his whole job. Like, if he's not getting gone on, he can just sit and wait and just spam out Poison Touch and his ult and Shadow Wave and wait till he needs to Grave. So really well played again. Really good positioning and just like really good patience from him. So here his positioning seems a little weird to me. They are like positioned to possibly pressure this top tier 2. It's like what it looks like they're looking to do. But relative to where his team is, he's pretty much in the front, him and Timber. So I think this is like very bad positioning on his part, like right now, right in this instance. And this is something you have to be really careful not to do, right? Like probably just a little bit of overconfidence. They're really strong, but like he doesn't want to get gone on right now. If the fight starts with him getting gone on and dying, like his team is just going to lose the fight. So I don't think his positioning is very good right here. Now that his team's walking in front of him, it's kind of a little better. But still, Timber and Earth Spirit are behind him. And like, you know, if you're in a pub and your team's doing this, where like you want them to walk forward and they're not, you just need to adjust your own positioning. Like you need to walk behind these guys, right? Because they don't have any read the enemy. Like the enemy's not coming from up here. Like that's for sure. So the enemy, if they're going to defend this tower, is here. So again, he's just sort of out of position here.
Radiant's top tower is under attack.
And relative again to where his team is, so the Terrorblade's in front of him, but the Timber and the Earth Spirit are kind of to the side of him. Like I would not consider them in front of him. And lo and behold, look at this. He gets gone on. And he only gets saved by a super fast Yules from the Timber Saw. I mean, that was crazy fast. Another like 0.2 seconds and he was easily dead. So you can see how his positioning like almost backfired there. You know, is your pub ally going to be as fast as XXS? Probably not. So he should have been positioned like given he has spider legs, he easily could have been like up here on this cliff. Right? And then he would have been like close enough to get into his TB. Could have backed up the Earth Spirit, could have backed up the Dazzle. His positioning really should have been up here. So this is just lucky that he didn't feed here. So you can see, like, even these guys, like, make some mistakes sometimes, right? He definitely, I promise you, he was not trying to bait the Ursa. That is not what he was doing. He was just out of position. So now his positioning is a lot better. You know, relative to where his team is and relative to where they are. Technically, he could still get jumped by the Ursa over here. He's got to be a little careful. But it's hard when you're a support. Like, he can't... Like, ideally, if this tower didn't exist, he would be, like, right where the tower is almost, right? But because the tower exists, as a support, you can't just, like, chill under the tower because it'll just kill you. So, given his options, this is kind of where he needs to be. He's just got to be very careful that, like, the Ursa doesn't jump him. So now I like his positioning a lot better. Up here, he can easily spider legs over to his team if he needs to get a grave off, but otherwise he's pretty safe. And just talk about his items real quick. He went for the Aether. Just another reflection of like he's not really getting gone on, except for that one time he was out of position. So if you can use this to improve your positioning, that helps a lot. I talked about it in my recent itemization video, but if the enemy doesn't have a lot of backline jump, that's when Aether Lens is really good. So these items make a lot of sense to me. Given how the game is playing out, I would probably have like these exact same items. These are really good items to have in this game. Force Staff, really good against Ursa, really good against Lesh. You know, it's like okay against Shaker, Wyvern, not particularly good, not particularly bad. But they have that's their two main cores, right? Their position 1 and their position 2. Force Staff's really good against, so it makes a lot of sense that he would want a Force Staff. And they have no real backline jump, except for Ursa, sort of. But given how the game is playing out, choosing between a Ghost Scepter and something like an Aether Lens, the Aether Lens makes more sense here, given that he's not really getting gone on for the most part. And it just makes his job of positioning a lot easier. And he can be even further back and make it even harder for the enemy to, like, find him and kill him, you know, without walking through, like, more of his team. What happened here? I'm missing this. So he's a little out of position here, or I guess Ori just gets caught, unfortunately. He gets caught by a really sneaky fissure from the Earthshaker. Like, I do not think they were expecting, like, him to get stunned here. So he is a little out of position, but, like, I can't really hold that against him, because they had no way of knowing that Earthshaker was there, and that's, like, super sneaky. Alright, so his TP's out, and so he doesn't need to save everybody, so he gets the heck out. Makes a lot of sense. Alright, this isn't related to positioning, but I just learned something watching him, like, do his items right now. It's pretty minor. But he locks his Gust of Appearance to buy another Dust of Appearance. Okay, one of these isn't owned by him, which is why I guess they didn't need to be locked. He unlocked it and they didn't combine. But I think the idea here is if it was his, he could have locked it to prevent it from combining. And the idea is to give one to his ally. So you can buy multiple dusts and then lock one, and then you'll have the separate one to give to somebody else so that it doesn't combine. Because when it's combined, you can't, like, uncombine them. And I didn't really realize that that worked that way, that you could, like, lock the dust to then, like, buy another one to, like, either sit on the ground or, like, give to an ally. So that's kind of cool. I literally just did not know that that's how that worked. Timber ends up dropping it on the ground. I think it's, like, giving it to Storm Spirit or something. But regardless, that was a kind of a neat interaction that I just wasn't aware of. Alright, so here they smoked up, and we'll just look at this positioning again. Looks like they're moving into the triangle, and he is letting his team be totally in front of him. Okay, the Earth Spirit's not in front of him, but the TB is very strong at this point, doesn't mind being in front, and the Timber is, like, in front. Relative to where he sees the enemy heroes, he's positioned furthest away, right? Like, he's not here behind his Storm, right? Because, like, the enemy is right here. Like, the Ursa could be, like, right here, in theory, right? Smoked. Like, if he's, like, next to his Earth Spirit, Ursa could be here, right? He's as far away from where he sees the enemies as possible. Especially given he doesn't know where the Ursa is. Alright, so Storm goes in, so he does move in close enough to get a Grave off if needed. Isn't needed, important to hold it. And now he sees the Ursa, so he's, like, not really afraid. Okay, so this isn't so much positioning related, but just because it's a really important concept, I'll, like, talk about it here anyways, is they are occupying the enemy triangle now. They made the smoke move into it. There was no fight, so they're just holding the enemy triangle, and they're like, we dare you to walk up into us, right? So when you're doing this, like, this is really important to do if you can, if you're ahead, which they are, and you're waiting for Roshan, which they are. It's really, really nice to be able to control this triangle area, and when you do this, it's super important to just have, like, perfect vision, and then just stay here and not go anywhere. So notice they have the ward on the high ground, which is, like, obviously easily de-warded, but if they're all going to be here, it's the best possible ward spot. And then note that he, like, flies out these 2 sentries and just, like, extra sure that there's no, like, obs on the edge here that the enemy could use to, like, then, like, move into here as a unit. So really careful warding, and he even comes and wards this back cliff too. So there's just no way that the Radiant can, like, walk into them without them seeing it. And now they can just wait for Roshan and chill and just cut the top and mid wave, and the bottom wave like doesn't matter that much. Granted, they already have the racks there, so it like kind of pushes it automatically, which is nice, but it literally doesn't even matter. And so notice how like patient they are. They just like sit here and like wait for Rosh, and they don't do anything else, right? They're just daring the other team to walk in. As soon as Rosh is up, they just go do the Rosh. This is like really how you want to play when you're waiting for Roshan. This is like a perfect example. Like literally nothing happened, and they literally just sat here, and that's like literally the perfect thing to do. Literally. It doesn't really matter which position it's not important. Being outside the pit is good, right? It's not going to be like in first range or something, but otherwise it doesn't really matter. So notice his positioning here, as far back as possible, right? Let his cores be on the front lines. He's not getting gone on. He doesn't see the Ursa yet, so if he wants to like come in and grave, he's got to be a little afraid. Luckily, he's got the giant cast. So saves his Terrorblade for a little while, but you know he does go down. The 4-staff there is really nice to get him out, and then Grave is back up and gets the Sunder off. So all of his items combined, we got 2 Graves off and the 4-staff, are hugely impactful in like saving his fire. And wow, look at this other, oh my god, look at this Grave. So his positioning here again is just perfect. As far away as possible, really utilizing his spider leg to the fullest, just be on this cliff. Like nobody's gonna get on top of him here. Ursa did die at buyback, by the way, so. Fissure, and then the Echo Slam, and yet the Storm Spirit lives amazingly. It's gotta be so frustrating if you're the Radiant team here. And a nice little 4-staff away, TP out, reset.
Radiant's middle tower
That was
attack.
a very expensive hold from TSM. They bought back on Ursa and Winter Wyvern, 2 cores. Alright, they smoked up. Just important, even during the smoke, to like keep your positioning, right? So relative to where his teammates are, he is, well, Timbercell's not here yet, but he's pretty far in the back, right? He's not getting gone on. Right. He's really far back. They got a ward on this high ground, which he sees, right? So fight is officially starting. They don't put that ward up unless they're like looking to fight. So first thing he does is D-ward, super important to take away that enemy vision, right? If that ward's up for the duration of the fight, it just makes it easy for him to get jumped. If that ward's dead, like it's really hard for Ursa to find him, right? Really good positioning, nice 4-staff. Notice he's just furthest in the back, not including Storm. We're never including Storm in this because he can instantly be in the front if he wants to be. Here in the jungle, positioning in the back, furthest away from where the enemy could possibly be. Yeah, he showed for a split second and then like spider legs and like ran away. Just really not wanting to get going on. I'm gonna see a save him buyback. Always save him buyback. Fight starting, as far away as possible. Hold on, let me just slow it down. Really nice positioning on the opposite side. He does see the Ursa on his mini-map. He does get Grave 1 off and 4-staff, really nice. That wasn't his 4-staff actually. Gets Sunder, nice support. Doesn't use his Grave on the Earth Spirit. I wonder, that seems to be intentional. It's just not as important at this phase in the game. Use his save on his fellow support. He's gotta save the support. Not quite in position to save the Storm Spirit though. Really good from Fnatic. Okay, so the Storm just gets caught, no BKB, by an Earthshaker, and he is just nowhere close enough. So this is probably just bad Storm. Like, Dazzle would have had to be like way over here and like close to the enemy to like be positioned for that save, so he really called him for that. Lets his whole team walk in front of him. He's not in a hurry. Has a Blink Dagger. This is a really nice positioning item. It just lets him be really far away and always be able to get in position to get his Grave off. So really nice pickup item if you have like a really important save. So this makes sense to me as well. He's just not getting gone on, and his Blink ensures like basically he'll never get gone on. Because he can just stay so far back and then still be in position to get a Grave off. So what's really important in this like situation when you're playing like this is just like, you know, almost not even watching your own hero, but just watching your cores and like You have to be aware of where your hero is, but it's all about just getting the jump. Or like being in range, like to like blink and be in range for your spells. And notice, you know, low MMR players, you don't need to blink in and poison touch just because you have a blink, right? That's not what he bought this blink for. This blink is not to jump in for a initiation. It's to jump in for a save after the fight's already started. Alright, so curse happens. A lot of stuff happening here. This Aeon Disc goes off. Or the Aeon Disc on his ally goes off. He doesn't have to save anybody yet. He's got pretty much his whole team on his screen, except for Storm. Looks like they kind of wiped it up without even needing to get a Grave off, so we'll wrap up the video there. So hopefully that was helpful. Maybe it was a little repetitive, but you can just see how consistently well positioned he was over the whole game. He got jumped one time, and it was the one time he was out of position. And the rest of the time, he was just perfectly positioned. Fnatic really had no heroes to go on him, which is just a little bit of a weakness of their draft in relation to being against a Dazzle. If you can't pick him off, it makes the game really hard to play against all these saves. So nice positioning and itemization from Siamese Cat, and hope you guys like that video. Cue outro. Hey, thanks for watching my video. If you're interested in more of my content, please sub to my channel. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment, and I usually respond to them. If you're interested in my coaching, check out the link to my Discord in the video description, and you can hit me up for coaching. I've got all the information there on how to sign up, and I'll see you in the next video.